My name is Dylan. I'm 23 years old. This happened about 2 years ago, in the fall of 2023. My girlfriend, Leah, and I decided to take a weekend camping trip up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. We were both in college back then, overworked, burnt out, and just wanted to disconnect for a couple of days. It was supposed to be this peaceful getaway, no cell service, no noise, no people, just us, the trees, and the quiet. We drove up on a Friday afternoon. The road wound higher and higher until we were surrounded by misty pine forests. It was beautiful, but there was this heaviness in the air. Like the fog that clung to the road had weight to it. We joked that it felt like we were driving into a horror movie, but we laughed it off. You know how couples do that, try to make the creepy stuff funny. We found a small clearing off a dirt road and set up our tent right beside a ridge that overlooked a narrow valley. The view was insane, a sea of orange and red leaves rolling into the distance. We made a fire, roasted marshmallows, and by nightfall, we were just sitting there watching the stars come out one by one. It was perfect, until the fog came in. It started sometime after midnight. At first, it was just thin wisps between the trees, then within minutes, we couldn't even see the fire from inside the tent. I remember how silent everything got. Like the fog swallowed every sound. No crickets, no wind, just this wet, muffled nothing. I was half asleep when I heard it. A faint crunch. Then another. Slow, deliberate footsteps moving around our tent. Leah whispered, "Dylan, do you hear that?" I froze. We both listened. The sound was circling us, maybe 10 feet away. The steps were uneven, like whoever it was trying not to make noise but kept stepping on twigs. My first thought was maybe a deer or a coyote, but then the steps stopped. And this voice, this low, raspy man's voice said, "You shouldn't be here." I swear my heart stopped. Leah clutched my arm so tight I could feel her nails dig in. I whispered, "Who's there?" But there was nothing, just silence. I grabbed my flashlight, unzipped the tent halfway, and shined it into the fog. Nothing. Just this wall of gray swirling around the light. The fog reflected the beam back like a mirror. I couldn't see 5 feet out. Then, from somewhere behind the tent, I heard it again. A faint whisper, "Leave." Leah started crying softly. I zipped the tent shut and whispered, "It's okay, it's just someone messing with us." But I didn't believe that. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the flashlight. We sat there for almost an hour, no more sounds, no movement. Just the fog pressing in all around us. When I finally looked at my phone, it was 3:42 a.m. No signal. The batteries in our lantern started flickering, and the air inside the tent felt damp and heavy, like breathing through a wet towel. I kept thinking about that voice, how close it sounded. Like he was standing right outside the thin layer of fabric separating us. Eventually, exhaustion took over, and we both dozed off. I don't know for how long, but I woke up again just before dawn to the faint sound of something dragging through the dirt. Not footsteps, something heavier. Like a shovel being pulled. When the sun finally came up, the fog lifted, and everything looked normal. But our campfire pit had been scattered. The stones we'd used to line it were in a circle a few feet away, and our cooler was open with the food dumped out. There were also boot prints in the mud, big ones, circling our tent. That's when we decided we were done. We packed up fast. Neither of us said much, we just wanted to get to the car and leave. The forest felt too still, too watchful. When we reached the trailhead, Leah froze. Our car door, the passenger side, was wide open. I ran ahead, shouting, "What the hell?" The inside of the car was a mess, the glove box ripped open, our bags tossed onto the ground. And then I saw the tires. All 4, slashed clean through. The rubber was still curling at the cuts, like it had just happened. Leah started panicking, saying, "Dylan, someone's here. Someone's been here. We were miles from the nearest ranger station, no cell service, and the only road out was a narrow dirt path that vanished into the trees. We locked ourselves in the car anyway, even though it couldn't go anywhere, just to have a door between us and whatever was out there. By afternoon, a park ranger's truck finally showed up. I've never been so relieved to see another human being. We explained everything, the voice, the footprints, the fog, and he kind of gave us this uneasy look. Then he told us something that still gives me chills. He said, "You two weren't the only ones camping out here last night." Apparently, there'd been a missing hiker reported a week earlier, a solo camper named Brian McAllister. The ranger said they'd been searching the area for days with no luck. He asked us to show him exactly where we'd pitched our tent. We went back up the trail with him, and when we got there, the ranger went pale. Just a few feet downhill from where our tent had been, half hidden under brush and dirt, was another tent. Torn, moldy, and half buried. It must have been there for weeks. Inside, they found an old camping stove, a rusted lantern, and a jacket with the missing hiker's name tag on it. I remember Leah whispering, "He was right there." That night, when we finally made it back to town, I couldn't stop thinking about that voice. The way it said, "You shouldn't be here." What if it wasn't a threat? What if it was a warning? The police never found whoever messed with our car. They chalked it up to vandalism, said the fog probably messed with our sense of distance and sound. But I know what I heard, and every now and then, when fog rolls in thick and silent, I swear I can hear that same voice whispering, just beyond the mist, "You shouldn't be here." My name's Ethan. I'm 24 years old, and this happened last summer, August of 2024. Two of my best friends, Marcus and Tyler, convinced me to go on this weekend camping trip out in Utah. We'd been talking about it for months, no phones, no Wi-Fi, just us, the stars, and maybe a couple of beers. We wanted to get away from everything. The drive out there took nearly 5 hours from Salt Lake City. The deeper we got into the back roads, the more isolated it felt. There were no houses, no signs, just endless scrub and distant mesas glowing orange under the setting sun. We finally parked near this old fire trail that led into the foothills. Marcus had brought these neon orange ribbons. He said we'd tie them along the path so we wouldn't get lost. I remember thinking it was a smart idea. The woods out there weren't thick, but everything kind of looked the same. By the time we reached the clearing, it was almost dark. We set up camp beside this cluster of rocks, lit a fire, and cracked open a couple drinks. The night was calm, cool breeze, stars so bright they looked fake. We stayed up until around midnight telling stories and talking about nothing. It was one of those nights you think you'll always remember for good reasons. Then came the second night. When I woke up that morning, something immediately felt off. The air was colder. Still. I climbed out of the tent and saw Marcus standing a few feet away, just staring into the trees. He pointed and said, "Do you see them?" At first I didn't get what he meant, then it hit me. All our ribbons were gone. Every single one. We had tied them every 20, 30 feet, bright orange strips hanging from branches. But now the trees were just bare. It was like someone had come through in the night and cut them all down. Tyler came out next, rubbing his eyes, half asleep. "Maybe the wind took him," he said. But the knots we tied were tight, and there hadn't been any wind till we decided to walk a little up the trail to check. That's when the second weird thing hit us. The clearing looked different. I don't even know how to explain it. The tree line seemed closer, the slope of the ground felt different, and the rocks where we'd made our fire pit looked smaller, like they'd been rearranged. Our tent was maybe 10 feet from where I remembered it being. It sounds crazy, but it felt like someone had picked up our whole camp and moved it in the middle of the night. Marcus kept saying it was just our imagination, that we were overthinking it, but there was this uneasy silence between us. None of us wanted to admit it. We were scared. We stayed another night anyway. Dumb, I know. But it was already getting late, and none of us felt like hiking back without the markers. So we rebuilt the fire and tried to laugh it off. But deep down, none of us were really laughing. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to a sound. It was faint, like someone walking slowly outside the tent. I thought maybe Marcus had gone to take a leak, but when I whispered his name, he answered from inside, half asleep. Tyler was there too, snoring. The footsteps circled once. Twice. Then, silenced, I stayed awake until the first light came through the tent fabric. I didn't move, didn't breathe, and when we stepped outside that morning, everything was worse. The fire pit was gone. Our backpacks had been moved. Even our boot prints from the day before were missing, like the ground had been swept clean. And beyond the trees, where the trail should have been, there was nothing but brush. It was like our campsite didn't exist anymore. By noon, we were desperate to find our way out. Marcus tried to retrace the route using his phone's GPS, but there was no service, no coordinates. Just static. So we started walking downhill, figuring it would eventually lead to the road. For hours, it felt like we were going in circles. Every direction looked the same, pale dirt, twisted trees, and that weird, endless quiet. Even the air felt wrong. Heavier. Like being underwater. Around 3 p.m., Tyler shouted, "Guys, I see the car." Relief hit me so hard I almost laughed. We ran toward it, through the trees, down the ridge, but then we froze. There was another tent. It was pitched just 30 feet from our car. A different tent. Old, faded, maybe army green. But wrapped around it were our ribbons. The same bright orange ones we'd used to mark our path. Tied neatly around the poles, like someone had claimed them. Marcus called out, thinking maybe someone else had found them. No answer. He unzipped the tent slowly, and this smell hit us, stale, like mildew and dust. Inside was just a sleeping bag, a metal lantern, and a Polaroid camera sitting right on top of a folded blanket. The camera had a single photo sticking out of it. Tyler pulled it out, and I'll never forget how his hands started shaking. It was a picture of the three of us sleeping. You could see our tent in the background, our fire burned down to embers, and us lying there inside. The photo looked recent, like it had been taken just hours earlier. We flipped through the rest of the pack. All of them were of us, some from different angles, some closer, some from the tree line. And in one of them, you could see a shadow standing right next to our tent. Not one of us a tall figure, just barely visible at the edge of the frame. That was enough. We grabbed what we could, threw it in the car, and took off on those rocky back roads so fast I thought we'd break an axle. None of us spoke for the entire drive home. Later, when we finally stopped for gas, Marcus looked at me and said, "You noticed it too, right?" I asked him what he meant. He said, "The car wasn't where we left it. The ground was different. Like someone moved it." To this day, I can't explain it. None of us can. We tried showing the Polaroids to a park ranger a week later, but the images had already faded, like they were never real. I haven't been camping since. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night thinking I hear someone walking outside my window, and I swear, if I look long enough into the dark, I can almost see a flash, like a camera going off. My name's Jason. I'm 29 years old, and this happened to me about 3 years ago, summer of 2022. I've always been big on solo backpacking. It's kind of my thing, heading out into the wilderness alone, away from everything, no noise, no people. It clears my head. That summer, I planned a 3-day trip through a part of Oregon's backcountry that I'd never explored before, dense forest, steep ridges, and this beautiful river that snaked through the valleys. I hiked most of the first day and set up camp near the water just before sunset. It was peaceful, that kind of silence you only get way out in the wild. The sound of the river was steady, soft, like background noise you could fall asleep to. I built a small fire, ate a freeze-dried meal, and watched the last light fade between the trees. I remember thinking how safe it felt out there, the air cool and still, the stars so bright you could see your own breath drift up into them. It must have been around midnight when I woke up. At first, I thought it was the wind, just faint noise cutting through the trees, but then I heard it again, clearer this time. A voice, "Help me." It was distant, maybe 100 yards away, coming from down by the river. I sat up, trying to listen. The water muffled everything, but I swear I heard it again, this time more frantic, "Help me." I fell in. I grabbed my flashlight, pulled on my boots, and started heading toward the sound. The night was foggy, and the air was cold enough that I could see the beam of my light cutting through it like smoke. The ground near the river was slick with mud, and the water itself looked almost black in the dark. "Hello?" I called out. "Where are you?" The voice answered, faint, shaky. "Please." Downstream. I followed the sound, moving along the riverbank, shining my light across the water. I couldn't see anything, no movement, no splashing, but the voice kept coming, always just a little farther ahead. At one point, I thought I saw something, maybe a shape in the water, a flash of white, like a shirt. But when I ran closer, it vanished beneath the surface. I called out again. Nothing. Then, after a few seconds, "Help me." From even farther down. That went on for hours. I must have followed that voice for almost 2 miles, my light flickering, my throat raw from shouting. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being led somewhere, like whoever it was didn't need help, they wanted me to keep following, and then it stopped. Just like that. No voice. No sound but the river. I stood there, staring into the dark, and suddenly felt how wrong it was. The forest around me was silent, too silent. No crickets, no wind. It felt like the world had stopped breathing. I turned to head back, but the fog had thickened. The trail was gone, swallowed by white mist. For a few seconds, I didn't even know which direction I'd come from. My flashlight died right then, just blinked out. I don't know why, but that was the moment I felt real panic. I fumbled for my backup, but my hands were shaking so bad I dropped it in the mud. The air smelled different too, wet, metallic, like rust or old blood. When I finally found my bearings and started walking back, I couldn't shake this thought, that maybe the voice wasn't human at all. It took me almost 2 hours to find my way back. The fog barely lifted, and the forest felt twisted, like it didn't match how I remembered it. Every tree looked the same, every sound felt close. When I finally reached my camp, my heart sank. My tent was gone, not collapsed. Not blown over. Gone. The fire pit was there, cold and covered in dirt, but everything else, my sleeping bag, stove, clothes, all of it had disappeared. Except my backpack. It was sitting upright near the riverbank, zipped up tight. At first, I thought maybe a bear had dragged the tent off, but there were no tracks, no torn fabric, no mess. It was too clean. Like someone had packed up my things and just taken them. I opened the backpack, half expecting to find my food missing, but instead, right on top of my clothes, was a folded piece of paper. It was wet, smudged, and written in shaky pencil. It said, "I was waiting for you to leave." I stood there frozen, staring at the note, trying to process what I was reading. My brain kept looping through questions. Who wrote this? How did they get here? How long were they watching me? The forest suddenly felt alive again, like every shadow was hiding someone. I grabbed the pack and started running. I didn't even look back. I just ran until my legs burned and the trees started thinning out. When I finally reached the trailhead, the sun was starting to rise. I collapsed near my car, locked the doors, and sat there shaking. I didn't go back for the tent. I didn't tell anyone, either. What was I supposed to say? That a voice in the dark led me away while someone or something waited at my camp? To this day, I can still hear that man's voice sometimes. Late at night, when I can't sleep, I'll hear it faintly in the back of my head, "Help me." I fell in. And then I remember the note, those 6 words burned into my mind, "I was waiting for you to leave." My name's Daniel. I'm 32 years old, and this happened to me and my family 3 summers ago in Oregon, near Crater Lake National Park. I've done a lot of camping in my life, but that trip changed how I see the woods forever. It started out perfect. My wife, Emily, and our 2 kids, Owen, who was 9, and Lily, who had just turned 6, were so excited for a weekend off-grid. We drove out early Friday morning, packed with snacks, a brand new tent, and all that optimistic energy families have when they think they're about to make core memories. We found this really quiet spot by the lake, the kind of place where you can hear the wind ripple through the pine trees and the water lapping gently at the shore. The ranger we checked in with told us the site was a bit remote, down a dirt trail that wasn't marked on most maps. That's exactly what I wanted: privacy, nature, no noise. By sunset that first night, the air was crisp, and the forest had that smell of pine sap and campfire smoke that makes you feel safe, you know? As it got dark, we roasted marshmallows, told some dumb ghost stories for the kids, and just watched the stars come out. That's when Emily pointed across the lake and said, "Hey, looks like we've got neighbors." I looked over and saw it, a faint orange glow flickering through the trees on the opposite side of the lake. A fire. For a while, we could even see a few little lights, flashlights maybe, bouncing around near the water. I remember hearing laughter, faint but definitely there. It sounded like kids. We all waved, thinking maybe it was another family camping out. I even flashed my light a few times, like a friendly signal. They didn't respond directly, but a few seconds later, we saw one of their flashlights blink twice, almost like an answer. Emily smiled. "See? Friendly folks." I didn't think much of it at the time. It was just comforting, knowing there was someone else out there, even across the water. But the next morning, when the sun came up, I noticed something strange. The other campsite, or where I thought it had been, looked empty. No movement, no tents visible through the trees, nothing. Just a blackened circle of what looked like a cold fire pit near the shore. Owen wanted to explore, so we decided to hike the trail that wrapped around the lake after breakfast. The ranger had said it looped the entire area, maybe 3 miles all the way around. I figured we could say hi to the neighbors and stretch our legs. The hike was peaceful at first. Birds, wind, water, all the sounds you want to hear in the woods. But as we got closer to where we'd seen the light the night before, the woods got quiet. No birdsong, no bugs, just this heavy stillness. Even the air felt colder. When we reached the other campsite, something felt off immediately. The clearing looked like it hadn't been used in years. The fire pit was full of old, ashy chunks and moss had grown around it. A rusted tin can sat half buried in the dirt. There were toys, a little red truck, a plastic doll missing an arm, just lying there, half sunk into the ground. Emily knelt down and brushed dirt off an old camping chair. It collapsed in her hand. "Danny," she said quietly, "this stuff's been here a long time." The food on the old table was just decayed remnants, mummified in plastic. Like someone had left in a hurry and never came back. That's when Owen tugged on my sleeve and pointed toward the trees. There was something carved into the bark of a pine near the fire pit. I walked over and read it, "Still here." The letters were faded but deep. And underneath it, smaller scratches, almost like someone had tried to add something else, but it was too weathered to read. I don't know why, but that sent a chill through me. Emily wanted to leave right away, and honestly, so did I. We told the kids we'd check with the ranger later, just to make sure we hadn't wandered into some old closed site, But that night, things got worse. We made dinner early, trying to shake the weirdness off. The kids seemed fine, playing cards in the tent, but Emily kept glancing at the opposite side of the lake. I remember her saying quietly, "It's strange, isn't it? How last night there were lights there, and now there's nothing." By around 10 p.m., everyone was asleep but me. I couldn't relax. The woods were dead silent, not a single frog, not a cricket. Just the occasional rustle of wind through the trees. I sat by the dying fire, staring across the black water. That's when I saw it again. A light. It flickered once, then again, faint, white, like someone walking with a flashlight. I leaned forward, squinting. The light moved slowly between the trees on the far bank, just where the old site had been. Then, another light appeared. Then another. It looked like 3, maybe 4 people walking near the water's edge. One smaller, maybe a kid. I felt my chest tighten. "Emily," I whispered, shaking her shoulder. She sat up groggy and looked. Her face went pale. "Danny, that's them," she said. "That's the same place." We watched together. The lights moved closer to the shore, and I swear, even from that distance, I could hear something. Faint laughter, then, just as suddenly, all the lights went out. No movement. No sound. Nothing but black water and moonlight. Emily whispered, "We need to go in the morning." And I nodded. I agreed. I'd had enough. But around 3 a.m., something woke me up again. The air was freezing cold inside the tent. I could hear water lapping harder than before, like waves slapping against the shore. Then, footsteps, slow, crunching footsteps right outside the tent. I froze. The kids were still asleep, thank God. I didn't dare move. Emily's hand found mine, shaking. Whoever it was, they stopped right outside. I could see a faint shadow moving against the tent wall, tall, motionless for a second. Then, in a whisper so faint I almost thought I imagined it, I heard, "Come back." That was it. I didn't breathe, didn't move. A few seconds later, the steps moved away, fading toward the water. At dawn, we packed up fast. I didn't even make coffee. When we got to the ranger station, I asked about the site across the lake. The ranger looked confused at first, then went pale when I described the location. "Sir, that section's been closed off for over 10 years, he said. "A family went missing there in 2011. We never reopened it." I remember Emily just staring at him, speechless. I asked, "But we saw lights, people, just last night." He shook his head slowly. "There's nobody out there. We left that morning. And I haven't gone camping since. Sometimes, though, when I close my eyes, I still see those lights, faint, flickering across the dark water. Like they're waiting for us to wave back again. I swear, they were real." Some places never let go of what they've lost. They just wait, quietly, for someone new to notice, and if you listen closely, maybe too closely, you might still hear them calling across the water. If this story lingered in your mind, tell me what you think below. I read every whisper you leave. Like, share, and subscribe to Jenny Noir, where every story hides something you were never meant to find. Until next time, keep your light close. Because sometimes, the dark is already watching.